Okay. Good evening and welcome to the fourth ever P.A.Z.NIA Second Realm Assembly, hosted on our own Jitsi server, the first piece in this overwhelming, or I guess this overarching, and I guess overwhelming too, P.A.Z.NIA infrastructure, I guess it could be. If you're new to the Free Republic, P.A.Z.NIA is the first free country in existence right now. A decentralized country spanning worldwide jurisdictions. Our goal is to create a parallel network founded upon the principles of peace, truth, and voluntarism. These here are Second Realm Assemblies, where we crowdsource the topic of liberation. To ensure you never miss a post or meeting, make sure to subscribe to the P.A.Z.NIA podcast on your favorite podcatcher and follow on Odyssey, P.A.Z.NIApodcast.com/Odyssey1. It can also begin or continue building a reputation in the Second Realm by joining our P.A.Z.NIA Committee of Correspondence on Telegram. That's t.me/PAZNIA chat. Further, become a more concrete part of our efforts, our vision, and reap the benefits of such a Second Realm parallel network. The most important of which is that we get to live these principles of peace, truth, and non-coercion in the here and now, in physical space and time, despite the predictable nature and behavior of the servile society. I'll talk to you about ways to get involved by contributing to the P.A.Z.NIA map later on, but for now, I'd love it if you headed on over to PAZNIA.com and took a bit to look it over. There you can become a stakeholder. You can make a one-time donation to the Second Realm with Bitcoin or fiat. You can order one-of-a-kind P.A.Z.NIA flags or stickers, and better yet, at PAZNIA.com/VanuFest, you can view the gatherings we host here at our Veritas node of the Free Republic of P.A.Z.NIA. The next one up is Dab's Giving, happening from November 24th to the 27th. All vetted self-liberators and P.A.Z.NIANs are encouraged to attend. So next up, give me one moment here to switch over on OBS to some QR codes. Next up, Josiah Warren was unable to be in attendance, but I wanted to promote the P.A.Z.NIA General Bitcoin Fund once more. This is our way of mutual aid, our way of helping to fund the development of the Second Realm. To provide a few such previous examples, Bitcoin was contributed to a couple political prisoners, the last being Roman Sterlingoff. A hair mineral analysis test was facilitated for a child of a P.A.Z.NIAN who is going through a health challenge. And funds were contributed to a P.A.Z.NIA in upstate New York to help someone towards self-sufficiency. There's plenty more for sure. If you'd like to make a contribution to this fund, and we would so graciously appreciate it, there are a couple ways to do so. You can head on over to PAZNIA.com/Bitcoin and use the QR codes available on that page. There's a static QR for any Bitcoin wallets, as well as a Samurai Paynim QR code for increased privacy by limiting address reuse. And if you're watching this video on Odyssey or FascistTube, you can find the QR codes on screen. However you do so, please do consider sending over some Bitcoin. There's really no better cause, and if you're ever in a pinch, do reach out. There's almost always help available. I should also note SimpleX, the unofficial new Telegram and Signal replacement for P.A.Z.NIA. We have a general committee of correspondence chat there, as well as a half a dozen or so subgroups focused on various projects or pieces of the coming infrastructure. For simplicity's sake, I'd recommend going to VanuPodcast.com/187 and finding the image in the show guide. There are short links to each of the groups there. Give me one moment here to flip back over. But yeah, anyway, the loose plan for tonight is as follows. One, we'll begin by discussing NextCloud as the backbone for most of our P.A.Z.NIA infrastructure. This was the topic of Jamin and myself's last very recent conversation on the Vanu podcast. Number two, on the back of the NextCloud discussion, we need to revisit the P.A.Z.NIA map since there are OpenStreetMap integrations. Seems like it might be easier to make this happen than what I previously thought. Thirdly, a terrific idea by Scratch, a P.A.Z.NIA Second Realm help wanted job board. Matthew Raymer and I worked on a project like this back around 2018 called Darklance, but that was a much more high-tech vision. I see this as being more evocative of a Craigslist, much easier to implement, and definitely a worthy focus. One of the first difficulties when exiting the First Realm is financial. Anything we can do to help help people transition is worthy of focus. And regarding this chat, I'd just love to get your guys' general thoughts and some ideas on implementation. Fourthly, is just general infrastructure deployment discussion. How do we get self-liberators on board at the NextCloud? How do they get connected to P.A.Z.NIA services securely for us and for them as easily as possible? Is there anyone we're missing that should be part of this discussion? Anyone on your guys' minds? Lots of questions that could be posited here indeed. but we'll leave it for that part. And lastly, this is a PAZNIA Second Realm Assembly, so we want to hear from you, whether it's about technology or infrastructure matters or not. General PAZNIA questions, some ideas for a different PAZNIA project, whatever it may be. Please do speak up. We'll definitely leave some time for that at the end. But I guess I'll mention for the benefit of the podcast listeners who may not be watching. I guess our main panel participants tonight, and I guess just main panel participants, Jamin Biconik, Matthew Raymer. I see that Dave from StartOS just hopped in, so that's amazing. JJ. I see some other folks here. Don't recognize all the names. Bueller, our head of our Department of Energy, is here too. Welcome, Bueller. But great to have y'all. And I look forward to a terrific discussion tonight. So I was going to start with updates and I guess introductions, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just assume folks are familiar with everyone here. At least Jamin, Matthew, Dave. All part of the last assembly, except maybe Jamin, you might not have been, but at least Matthew and Dave, if you aren't familiar with them, there's definitely other material out there to learn more. But yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get right into it here. Jamin, so let's start with NextCloud. Kind of like you did for the podcast, we'll do a take two of this, but for the benefit of PAZNIans here, could you provide an overview of NextCloud and a vision for how it could support the overall PAZNIA infrastructure?
Sure. I mean, NextCloud is a Google Cloud Services alternative that you can run locally or on a VPS on your own cloud server. And the core of the app is basically centered around the file sharing capabilities of equaling like Google Drive or Dropbox or any of the other cloud storage providers. And then it has a bunch of plugin support for different connectivity options too. And everything's federated. So there's a social aspect to it that's already there that is basically what we need.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much more detail.
Yeah, so I guess that's definitely a good start. I suppose I'll mention, there's a ton of integrations. If people haven't listened to the episode with Jamin, a Jitsi integration. So this I guess this DigitalOcean droplet integration, what we're using now, might not be what we use for much longer. But yeah, there's a Jitsi integration. Like you're talking about the OpenStreetMap integration. There's a lot of other stuff. It seems pretty. Pretty full featured. Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
It is pretty full featured, but it's missing one thing.
Yeah,
it's missing one really important thing. It needs the ability to do like Calendly sort of scheduling, where you could send a link to someone and they could pick a time on your calendar. So what we're using Libre or OpenOffice or LibreOffice or whatever the NextCloud is the better version. We actually got into this whole self-hosting thing several years ago, and we didn't really know about NextCloud whenever we did it. So I think we're using LibreOffice or what is that other one? You guys remember off the top of your head what the name of they're the same software, but
there's OpenOffice, there's LibreOffice.
OpenOffice and LibreOffice.
Yeah, and we're using OpenOffice, I'm pretty sure, and we love it. I mean, it's got a few little UI quirks, but I mean, it's great. The only thing we found is we don't have a way to do calendaring. So what I'm recommending is a library called Radical, Radicle, I think is how you spell it, and it lets you do the same thing as Calendly, and it's WebDave compatible. And I think that's what we really should be looking for, is stuff that's WebDave compatible. And one other thing it's missing, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, can you actually share public links to files off of NextCloud?
Yes, you can. And NextCloud's also WebDAV compatible.
But you don't have calendaring. You have internal calendaring, but you don't have a way to like give people your available times.
Yeah, there's a NextCloud app called Appointments, and I think Jamin was alluding to that a minute ago,
Cool.
which has that functionality.
Nice.
Oh, cool. I'll look that up because it would be nice to. Do you think that would integrate with Open Office as well?
I'm not sure. What integrate in what sense? Is there a calendar
Because
component
these
to
are
OpenOffice?
there are add-ons to like NextCloud and LibreOffice, OpenOffice. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's any direct integration there. I mean, usually the web dab apps are browser based, as far as I don't know. I'm not exactly sure if LibreOffice has the integration.
Okay. Okay. I'll check. It would be cool if I could do that without changing my current software.
I do know that you can export HTML from OpenOffice, LibreOffice, but beyond that, I'm not sure what kind of HTML integration it has with third-party tools.
Gotcha. So I suppose I will mention that I just sent just was it today? Today's been a long day. It's 7. It's almost past my bedtime now, guys. It's a little late for me, so you have to bear with me. But yeah, I just mailed out my an old Ghost Pad and my old Nodal back to Jamin, and I'll have a, I guess a public and I guess a private version of NextCloud. So I'll be excited to get started on that and see what just get to do some testing. But as far as integrations and I guess just use and experience. I guess especially Jamin, Matthew, and Dave. I'm especially and Thomas too. Your guys' experience, if you guys have ever used NextCloud and your experience with using it and I guess user friendliness. I guess yeah, I guess all those important things that we'd be looking for. So I guess Jamin, if you want to go, if you want to start, or I guess
Well,
whoever, or Matthew, it doesn't matter.
well, I mean, like I just said, I'm using OpenOffice. It's working just fine. It is a little bit clunky here and there, but maybe that's just my own ignorance of how to use it. And I just I was been a user of Google's products since the early 2000s, whenever they came out. And what I'm seeing now is a great opportunity for us to basically surpass Google, because Google hasn't really improved anything in a decade. All they've done is made things more difficult to use. Before that, they actually were doing things that made software easier to use, but not anymore. So I think this is a good opportunity. And are there any developers in the audience today?
Well, of course there are.
Yeah, I think there's at least a handful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there may be some opportunities depending on your skill set, your stack, to actually contribute to making better interface tools here. That's something we might want to talk about as well.
Awesome.
I love your point about Google not getting any better, and this is a thesis that kind of drives what we do as well, because not only are they not improving, but they're more focused on improving things for themselves at the expense of their users, who are often maybe not even paying for these services.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know what the whole security thing. Sorry to plow over you. The whole security thing, I think, is a big issue right now. All of these new security protocols that Google's implementing actually make a worse user experience, and I really don't think that it secures the app any better.
Yeah,
Probably makes it more porous so that they can access and mine information easier.
right.
Probably.
Yeah, because you got to keep in mind that what we're doing here. A couple things. We have the beauty of the simplicity of the software that a lot of us will remember as a throwback to earlier days of Office software, for example. But in addition to that, Google is having to defend a gigantic honeypot, right? They have millions and millions of users, and so they're just under threat, or under attack even, not threat, but they're under attack every single day. Plus all of the nonsense, as Thomas just mentioned, the advertising, the surveillance, the tracking, the profiling, manipulation, psychological attacks, and experiments. But what we're doing here is we're distributing all of this data back to the people that that create it. So its original owners and its creators, which is more secure. Walking a handful of places in order to be more easily attacked.
Yeah. I agree. I agree that distributed architectures are definitely more secure. And Google is not helping us. They're helping themselves. The question is, where can we find some spots that some of us, and I'm kind of full up on software projects at the moment, but when we have bandwidth, maybe what we need to do first is look at where the needs are in the apps as we adopt these. What is it that we need to write? If we don't need to write it, there's no use reinventing the wheel.
Certainly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we're almost overwhelmed with good tools now, and it's we're almost at the point where education and training are going to be taking over as the primary kind of need, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always going to be a place for improved software and UI, UX, but I think in the nutshell, advocacy is what's important now. Getting people convinced that they need to go away from massive cloud-based structures to more distributed structures.
Well, we really need to be convincing people. I mean, I think in general, the Banu approach is to let people come to us. I mean, it's people that are seeking solutions and trying to find ways for more free lifestyles. They're going to come to us. So whatever education issues they may bring to us, we need to address those. But in terms of an outreach type of thing, I don't really think we need to have an educational thing that's geared towards educating people about why things should be done a certain way with regard to
I guess then maybe we should stop the podcast.
Well, I mean, education's a big part, but it's we kind of have an audience already. There's a base of people that already want to do this, and we could spend more time getting them up to speed and how to do it than just kind of explaining to them why they want to do it when they already know. But
you know what? I'd say you're right in the sense that if we get everyone up to speed, then actually the people, the leaves of the tree can actually become nodes, right? And it would be more efficient than centralizing everything through one person.
Yeah, and the way that I kind of see it initially is, the PAZNIA network, Matthew, like all of it's based off, the circle of trust model, in terms of vetting, as part of the security culture model. So kind of that, that's we've got our initial, however many people there are, we can get, the alpha testing out of the way, get it, working really well, so that when we get it in the hands of more people, then it's it works super well. So we don't necessarily have to address that part even necessarily. We've got to figure out, at least right now, I guess, what we're thinking about in terms of infrastructure and what would be suitable. I think NextCloud, it sounds like it's really promising. It really does. I guess I would just be curious. It looks like JJ rejoined. There's other folks here. If anyone has any more experiences they'd like to share with NextCloud, I'm especially curious about like the Jitsi integration or OpenStreetMap integration. Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't had any experience at all with NextCloud. I had there was another one that was offered out there in terms of discussion that I had some experience with. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Yanu host or host, that's what it was. But other than that, I really haven't got any experiences with these cloud-based or these platform, these kind of pseudo self-hosting kind of platform solutions. Gotcha. Anybody else?
You mentioned the Yunu host. That's actually something that we might want to look into as a infrastructure platform to run NextCloud on. At least certain people who want to take their knowledge to the next level, because it's actually a really good set of training wheels to learn how to administer your own server.
Yes.
There's like a lot of good tools built into it for that, and it has like mail built in if you want, and it has an XMPP chat server built in for messaging. Like, it's actually a pretty nice system if you want to use it as an educational tool. It's not like as fire and forget as some of these other like super easy to configure server OSs that are out now, but it's definitely something that you would learn a ton from.
One thing that surprises me to hear you say that is that I was under the impression that NextCloud was pretty much a similar kind of things to Unohost. It provided a lot of the same infrastructure facilities, maybe not as broadly, but it was pretty much an operating system that you install on a host to get as much as you wanted done that you can do with NextCloud. So apparently that's not the case.
Well, NextCloud's more of a web application with a front end
Okay.
and back end. And you can actually run NextCloud on Unohost. It's one of their, easy installable options from their menu install.
Okay.
But I don't know, the devices I'm making just for NextCloud basically just do that. There's no extra like web interface or anything. You just plug it in and NextCloud. But some people are going to want to have different setups, and if you have more hardware, you could have like even like what is Embassy OS or like a lot of the other alternatives like that. They pretty much every one of those offer NextCloud as an installable option. Now, one thing we have to look at though is not all installs of NextCloud are equal. Like I've run into some different problems with plugins installing and just a bunch of bugs from using different distributions with NextCloud on top. So we're just going to have to do a little bit of experimenting on deployment to find what works for everybody.
Have you had any experience with migration? Because I like I said, I adopted OpenOffice a long time ago.
Well,
have you ever migrated anybody?
Well, NextCloud Office, like the core of that, I believe, is LibreOffice.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's just running it on, instead of a local instance, you're running basically a remote instance. Now, there's what gets confusing is there are multiple Office plugins for NextCloud, and there's multiple ways to get them to work, and they have different functionality. So what we'd have to do is have one of these and talk about each one of them, or even in the chat or whatever, just to see which one meets everybody's needs. But a lot of them are very similar under the hood, and a lot of them, the better ones, you actually have to run another server like Collabra. There is a basically a Office server, for lack of a better term, that you run, and the NextCloud client connects to it. So that's another consideration. But the built-in functionality in NextCloud, without any of those plugins, it can do basic document editing and stuff like that. I still use LibreOffice just out of habit. I've been using it since it was made by Sun and called StarOffice. So I'm like kind of OG.
Wow.
So it's always done everything I need to. So I basically use both. And I use NextCloud more for the note feature, which has a good mobile app that goes with it. And it's basically let me be organized, and like my own internal network, my cloud functionality that I need. It's just to have my notes available on any device I'm at. And as simple as that is, it does a really good job at that.
Cool. Yeah, we need to connect on Simplex, because I might want your input. I've got a few. I'm deployed on a cloud server for my company, and I've probably got some questions. I'd love to pick your brain on some.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Right on. So I guess Jamin, Matthew, anybody, OpenStreetMap's integration. Anyone have any experience with, with that generally, or even with it on NextCloud? Now, there was a a nonprofit out in Germany or something that has a server that you can create your own custom map on. So I tested it out and added a handful of locations. But if you don't host the map, you can't actually like go. It's not always customizable or editable. It's just kind of like save it and it's done, and then you've got a link to it. So I created the private side of the PAZNIA website, and I embedded the OpenStreetMap on there, and it looks super slick. And that API, that's super basic technology, so that shouldn't matter whether we deploy. It shouldn't matter, where you deploy it on, whether you do it, the way we were talking about it before, or on NextCloud. It should be pretty similar, and maybe even easier, since it's an actual integration on NextCloud. So, yeah, any thoughts on on that? I'm guessing it's probably it's probably as easy as just installing it, but then I'm guessing whenever I get that ghost pad back with that NextCloud software, I might just have to do some tooling around and see where we can even start from, because I don't know what it looks like myself.
Well,
but I'll leave it to you, Jamin. What do you think?
In one of my lab installs of NextCloud, I installed it before I knew it had any of the functionality that you were looking for, and it just worked. So I'm like, oh, cool maps, and I haven't really messed with it. But it was pretty trivial to set up for the basic mapping functionality. I didn't get under the hood and try to make a custom map or anything. But there is also, I think, 2 other apps in NextCloud that are GPX file editors for editing map, editing routes. So yeah, it's probably there somewhere. I just haven't.
Yeah.
What about security? I mean, how would that be? I mean, clearly, if we're going to have a map of people's locations, at least suitable,
no, that's a good.
Want to have some security behind.
Well, yeah. So, the first map we're working on is the private one for vetted PAZNIA, so this will only be available privately. But even then, obviously, stuff happens, and if the map whatever to get out, that would you don't want it to be a too critical thing. So what I put on the there's a forum, PAZNIA.com/join. So homesteads can go on there, local health food stores, local farms. Guerrilla gardening spots, anything that could be of value to a PAZNIan or a Vanuan or self-liberator, the map would be there. But but at this for this forum, I put on there, and with Veritas being the demonstration, 30 miles out, we recommend putting the marker 30 miles out, and then you connect privately with the individual you're trying to connect with. So it's 30 miles away, so it's not super specific, but you are correct. There is a slight risk, but at the same time, if we want to do some of the more extensive things like the logistics network, or if nomads want to be able to plan their routes and basically just live in the second realm, at these places, we've got to have some sort of map available. So yeah, there's a slight risk to it, but we can mitigate a lot of those just by making it kind of obscure and reach out privately. And yeah, maybe it can become more efficient as we move on, but it's a good model to start with. So is that sufficient? Because that got brought up today here at PAZNIA or here at Veritas. So if there's any other questions on that, I'm happy to mention them. It's valid.
Well,
So
the thing
it's
is
only accessible by people that have been vetted that are inside the Vanu clan, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that definitely helps a lot for sure. But there's other issues of security with regard to hacking and people trying to break into things when you see open ports and stuff like that. We need to make sure that it's hosted on a suitable, secure platform for
sure.
even our own use.
Yeah.
Another mitigation there is that there's no limit to the number of NextCloud servers that could be run, all the way down to 1 per person, and keep that specific locations of places that you're interested in being or that you've been to before that you want to keep in regards to something that you want public, even amongst our trusted group.
So is that when you say federated, do you mean that it actually has in the box the ability to federate the instances, or is this something we'd have to kind of hodgepodge together?
There is some federation built into NextCloud. That's something that I've not spent a lot of time on yet. I'd love to hear if other people have experience with that. I also would like to backtrack and talk about the experience that we've had testing NextCloud on StartOS recently, but that might be
yes.
tangential.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I'm definitely
useful, actually.
yeah.
Rayo asked for people's experience.
Yes, and that'd be
Yeah,
a big one too.
cool.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be big. Yeah, please share.
yeah. Yeah, I hate to backtrack. I got a little sidetracked when we were on that, but yeah, I heard mentioned Embassy OS. We've rebranded to StartOS, so hopefully that's not too confusing, but hopefully won't change the name again anytime soon. But we have, I kind of consider it sort of a potential spiritual successor to something like Host or Unohost. We're not quite feature complete with them, so that's something that we're aiming for early next year. But our testing, and what's interesting to me and what I'd like to hear from other people if they've tested this kind of stuff, we've been able to, because we want to assume a residential connection of a typical user, so no static IPs, no no dedicated lines typically, and moderate bandwidth typically. And then the interesting tests is usually around things like video conferencing with larger groups of people. So for example, a meeting like this would probably, in our experience, is fine. But any larger than this, and you tend to need to also add the, a turn or a stun server in addition. That can all be done within NextCloud as well. But I'm interested if anyone here has done any testing with like very large groups, like 50 to 100 in a video conference, or if anyone has any more experience with federation as well.
No,
but
I've only
man,
led some talks so far.
Yeah, I would really love it. Maybe this is one of those pilot projects. This sounds pretty important to me that we need to think a bit more about that. I know I'm working with another group that I'm not at liberty to talk about who at the moment. But they're actually, this is one of their projects, but they've got this out at like a 20-year goal. I'd like to see this type of integration from local like home connections a lot sooner than 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah,
progress in that direction by like next year, some progress in that direction. So yeah.
Yeah. But we all know whenever you're trying to set up something on a local router that there are lots of obstacles.
Well, there's a lot of good tech now for getting through NAT. So I mean, really NAT in the whole IP changing all the time is the biggest issue. And then you have like carrier grade NAT when people are trying to do stuff over like hotspots and like tethered devices, which I want to get into figuring that out soon. Because one of my ideas for some of the nodes is you could basically take a Calyx hotspot and a mini PC based node and stick it anywhere you have power and that has access to T-Mobile's networks, and you have a decent node to run a service on, whatever that is, whether it be a NextCloud service with the map that's accessible, like more of like a community NextCloud instance or something like that. But that's what you have to deal with that is you have it's network address translation. So like when you're behind a router, the router has the actual IP address on the ISP's network, and then it doles out addresses to your equipment behind it that basically translates the entries from the ISP side.
Wide area network, yeah.
So I mean that's really the big challenge for like the easy device to just plug into people's stuff. But there's all kinds of like reverse tunneling tech now. So like I use this for the AI, the local AI that I'm running. It uses Gradio as its web interface, and it already has like this tunneling built in where you can basically make a reverse tunnel that goes through NAT, and people can connect to the machine from the internet without you doing anything with the router to try out your instance. So there's all this tech that's like out coming out now and being
Well,
used.
maybe could you put together like maybe a half a dozen to a dozen like videos or articles to kind of maybe we could read?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of, like, my notes I'm turning into documentation. So they'll
Cool.
have links, and what I'm doing is I basically have, bullet pointed notes from my labbing and research, and I'm basically running that into a local AI, which I'm using like Llama 2 70B uncensored. So it's like a 70 billion parameter AI, and it's
Mm-hmm.
elaborating enough to where they make sense to other people but me. And I'm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
basically putting those together for educational resources for this entire project. I'm making a manual.
You said that was llama what? Llama.
Llama 2, it's one
Cool.
of the open source models that Meta released. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest one they released.
I'm looking at it on Hugging Face right now. That's cool.
Oh yeah, it's
Uh,
pretty good model. It's at least as good as
and
GPT 3.5.
have you looked at Bloom?
No, I haven't really looked at much other than the Llama models because there's so many of them, and the Stable Diffusion and SDXL, and the audio one that I've messed around with is Bark.
How much gig do you have powering the model?
I have a pair of NVIDIA Tesla T40s that are like 24
Nice.
gig GPUs in a
Nice.
dual processor workstation with a pair of like 18 core Xeons, and I'm
Cool.
using the GPU and CPU to inference
Nice.
because the model is so
Nice.
big.
The group I mentioned earlier is doing this commercial, and they're using Bloom, but Bloom is like 250 gig of RAM required.
Yeah, the ones, see, I'm using quantized models, so like I'm
Mm-hmm.
using a Q4 quantized model, so it's like 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 40 like 50 gigs or something it needs,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
that's
Okay.
like quantized down from like 150 or something like that.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you need to make another document talking about
Oh,
AI.
it's in the works. Like, now that I have the AI working to do this stuff, like all the stuff that was too time intensive for me to actually do when it comes to documentation, I can do. So like the amount
Oh
of
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. It's a total game changer on many levels, and that's why I want to get private AI.
I mean that.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
and the thing is, if you already know the material enough to write whatever you're doing, you can
mm-hmm.
error check it on the fly, and
Yes.
it's might as well just be mining it out of your brain because it knows what's up for the most part.
Well, not to get us too far off the trail, but what we're doing over at Content Safe is we're trying to introduce AI and search into our whole workflow as far as distributing video. We want to transcribe the video, we want to intentify it, and we'd love to make it searchable, old school Elasticsearch searchable, but we'd
Okay.
also like it to be queryable so that you could basically ask a content creator what they think about a topic, and it could give you back an answer in their context, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and,
Yeah, that's not as hard as you think. I mean, there
no,
is.
no, I agree. I agree. It's just having the equipment and understanding how to configure everything is the real issue.
Yeah, because the AI agent tech now is getting pretty crazy, and like there's so much good free open source locally run stuff right now that um for my purposes, if I was paying OpenAI, I wouldn't be getting any better material out of it. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
some, like when you get to like GPT-4 level, where like they don't even disclose how big the model is, from what I understand. but it's probably something like 500 billion parameters or something.
Wow.
Like it's good at a bunch of stuff, but what they're finding is the more like you take these smaller models and you fine tune them, they actually become better at what you fine tune them for than the big model is on it because it's so generalized. So
I could see that, and that would kind of be like analogous to, because I wrote a thing. I wrote a 10-hour course on AI about 5 years ago, which means that it's all old information. uh, it, and what I would say it's analogous to is overtraining.
yeah, and it takes so much hardware to inference it too that it's crazy. Now these models, you can, and for anybody listening that wants to experiment, you can experiment as long as you have a computer that's newer than like an Intel 4th generation platform or one of the new ARM based Macs. It's called GPT-4All, and you can inference models on your CPU up to about for speed reasons up to probably about like a 16 billion parameter model, but you can get great results, and it's conversational speed too.
Oh wow, this is beautiful. Wow.
And they have a list of models that work the best with it. I mean, it was the one that got a lot of press because it was originally made for the new Mac ARM platform, that the M1 M2 Macs, and they have this like monolithic memory that it's kind of like a game game console, how it doesn't have separate graphics, VRAM and system RAM. It's all together, and it's super fast, so it's actually decent for AI inference. So but yeah, GPT-4All, like number 4 all.
I'm looking at it. This is beautiful. And they have Python bindings, it looks like, for everything.
Oh yeah, they have an API and everything.
Wow.
And that specific one will chat with documents. That has a chat with documents function. So just like you were saying, your documents would be your transcripts. So you could plug your transcripts into the chat with documents function, experiment with whichever retraining of a llama model works best for you, and you probably have what you want already.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. This is great. This is great.
And to tie back in here, NextCloud in their latest release, they have started integrating these kind of tools as well. So for basic like copy editing and things of that nature, what I think they're doing that's really interesting is they're providing a framework, sort of I think it's like a red, yellow, orange, green type of what do you call it? Like it's like the terror level.
Yeah. Like it's like a AI ethics level or something like that.
But it's on the ethical background of the tool in use. So you can choose based on the tool that you're using. What does the producer of this particular tool or model, how are they rated? Now, of course, that's being arbitrated by NextCloud at the moment, but even having that system at all, I think, is a step in the right direction, because we need to be, on top of keeping these, training these machines to be, freedom principled in the way that we are, as opposed to allowing centralized third parties to dictate from the top down what their models will, what biases their models will carry, and so on.
Yeah, I've been really getting into researching AI bias kind of firsthand, and it's really interesting. There's a dude on YouTube. I was telling Shane about him at one point. I said he's like Brian Sovereign's brother from another mother, because he reminds me of Brian. But anyway, David Shapiro, but his whole deal is like AI alignment and AI ethics. But he has a really good video about how AI is actually being, like, the OpenAI AI is actually being dishonest intentionally on different subjects. It's not like making a mistake. It's not like there's the refusal to answers. It's like a whole different category where it's actually telling you something it knows is false.
I can give you examples. I can
Try
give you
try
examples.
try giving
Yeah,
it try to
yeah.
give it alternative philosophy, like like what we believe, and see what it says, and it'll constantly just roll back to a quote Republican kind of sort of
Yeah.
ideology there. It's like
You know,
I just told you to assume this, and you're not even drawing upon what I just told you to assume on.
yeah,
So
you
I
know
have some
what I
great
did.
transcripts.
It's kind of benign, but I was looking into asking Chat GPT, like say 6 months ago, questions about H.G. Wells, because we all know Wells was a Fabian socialist,
Oh yeah.
and right, and I was questioning his like time machine, like aren't the Eloi the actual working class, and the Morlocks are the elite. And they said, "Oh no! All of Wells, it's the opposite. The Eloi are the elite, and the working class are the Morlocks." And I'm like, no, no. If you read it carefully and you look in the context, that's not how the people of his day looked at things. They didn't look at themselves as being, like they looked at themselves as being wild men, beasts. And you go through this whole thing, and it just keeps coming back to no, that's not right. That's not right. You could be right, but no, that's not right. So yeah, absolutely. Has anybody heard of Active Inference Institute?
No.
They're one of my clients, and they are. I don't know where they stand on all of this, but they do have a lot of interesting things about AI, and they're like on the bleeding edge of AI research.
Hmm.
Interesting.
So one of the things I've been doing is I've been experimenting with chatbots and personalities for chatbots. And one of the canned ones I found that was really cool to play with was Kevin Flynn from Tron. And so I was feeding Kevin Flynn Lysander Spooner quotes, and there's a pretty fun transcript to all that. And I also fed him the Tale of the Slave from Robert Nozick, and yeah, the spin he gives it is pretty statist.
Yeah.
Wow,
Interesting.
that is
Interesting. Well, yeah. So that this
okay.
is
So
this
when
is
so
this
when
is
can we
this
have
is
this?
Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, when can we have this guide?
Oh, it's coming, man. Like I have a wiki that's just has bits and pieces of it on right now. That is just private on a VPS out there. But my workflow is to get get like coherent it's out to consumption. But if you want to look at it early, you're welcome.
Oh, sure, sure. Like I say, this is something that actually it's a daily thing for me. So I would love to learn
And
along
as
with you.
far as the AI inference servers, um, I actually am building those for sale. And what I'm
Cool.
doing is I'm using repurposed kind of end-of-line data center GPUs, and I'm modifying them to work in workstation cases. Basically, they have a 3D printed fan adapter to give them cooling because they're passive. They rely on the server's fans in a server, but they end up being about half the price of anything comparable as far as performance goes, because not many people know you can actually still do stuff with
Well,
them, I guess.
now you get in touch with me because my company would be interested in talking to you about purchasing things like that.
Right on.
Yeah, definitely. And and I'll just shout out any Pythonistas in the audience. I, I need I need a Python developer. And right now our budgets are limited to piecework. So if you don't really have time, I can probably give 5 to 10 to 15 hour gigs based on how much money we currently have. So, and it just contact me in Simplex.
Nice. Yeah, and kind of, I guess, kind of on that note, kind of on that note, and I'd love to continue the AI discussion, much longer. Jamin, we're gonna have you on to go much more in depth on that on the Bonnie podcast again. But anyway, it definitely sounds like, at the moment, it'll kind of just be, once I can get NextCloud in my hands, so to speak, and have a chance to see what it can do and start putting pieces together. And it kind of sounds like that's where we're at for a number of these things. And sounds like we need to take our time and do it right. Indeed. But yeah, on that note of service, help wanted, or services offered type thing. This was the next thing I wanted to just kind of broach and see what your guys' thoughts were. Scratch was here for Vonifest, and one of the ideas he brought up was he called it the P.A.Z.NIA Department of Commerce, like a Craigslist job board type thing. And I mentioned Matthew, I mentioned Darklands to him, and kind of a summary of what our overarching vision was, and how it was kind of complex and all those and all that good stuff. And we're talking more about it, and like a basic Craigslist type, open source app that's already out there. I know they're out there. Basically, just clone it and get something like that set up in it. And like Jam and I talked about with this, it'd be totally public facing. There would need to be like very little security. So it'd be separate than the P.A.Z.NIA map and kind of that sort of infrastructure. But I think it's something we need to. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on how easy that'd be to implement, etc. Because providing ways for people out of the first realm is critically important. As well as just making these making platforms like these available. And if it's public and we got like a site like PAZNIAjobs.com or something like that, whatever the domain it ends up being, then it's good. It's good for bringing people on the network too. It's kind of that very public layer where vetting can kind of begin, I guess, per se, at least in that avenue. But what do you guys think? Just I guess the general thoughts, or general thoughts on the idea, and then I guess implementation. I'll just kind of open the floor up there.
So my general thought is I think it's a great idea. I don't know about public necessarily, but I mean I can see that as a option for us to bring in maybe people who are not aware of VANU, and bring them into the fold, as it were. So I mean, I think it'd be great, especially all of us have skills, right? And all of us are always looking for people who need our skills, and having something like a Craigslist would be, I think, amazing for us.
Mm-hmm. Most certainly.
It doesn't seem like it would be all that difficult to do. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier, Rayo, that use something a little more simple than you had originally envisioned. Something like a Craigslist type of thing would be great.
Oh, why not just use Simplex as it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean,
I guess.
And I was going to also bring up that we should be self-hosting. In fact, I do plan, hopefully sometime this month, to begin self-hosting my own Simplex node.
Nice.
And we should also be thinking about one of the things that attracted me to Simplex beyond the other privacy features was that it has its own bots, so you can write bots for it.
Okay, very nice. So maybe Simplex, maybe Simplex is going to be a more critical piece of infrastructure. Wow. Okay. I like it.
Seems like it.
Oh, speaking of Simplex, anybody here have much experience using the video? Matt and I have been trying the video. We've tried twice to do video conferencing with the Simplex, and we haven't been able to do it. Now, the first time we did it, we were trying to use our Android phones, but the second time we did it, we were trying to use the desktop app. And the desktop app doesn't even appear to support it yet.
Good question. I have not.
Nobody
audio calls through it. I haven't really tried the video yet.
Yeah, the audio
video,
call
I mean,
was crystal
it'd be great.
clear.
It would be great to eliminate Zoom. I mean, a lot of times we're so. I mean, I hate using those centralized servers like that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And there is Jitsi too. I suppose. On that note, for for video calling, but it would be better if it was all in one. Yeah, for sure. But that is, I wonder.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Jitsi, I mean,
hmm
we're using a. Who's hosting the Jitsi service we're using now?
It's a DigitalOcean droplet
Is that
currently.
being self-hosted by somebody here in
Nope, not yet. Not yet.
okay. So it's centralized, but it's centralized, but it's not really it's it's self-hosted, but on a public VPS type of
Correct.
system.
Yeah, correct. It's an intermediate step because Jitsi just within the past couple months, they came out with you used to
Right.
just be able to start your own room, anonymous room, but now they wanted you to log in through like Google or GitHub in order to use their service. So this was kind of a way to get it. So I use this for podcasts too. So like I need a place to record podcasts, works for the assembly, and there's a lot more bigger ideas that Jim and I talked about in the last podcast. But yeah, eventually the objective is to obviously get everything, self-hosted by us in some fashion or another. I don't know how that looks, but yeah, for sure.
Doesn't Jitsi require a static IP address?
Um,
XMPP does as well.
yeah, so I know for the for the PAZNIA Jitsi one, yeah, you have to have a static address, and you have to have a an SSL certificate or whatever. Since you need to use audio and video, or since those permissions need to be enabled, I guess
Right.
is how it was explained on DigitalOcean. But
The SSL certificate is probably not that big of a deal. You can probably use Let's Encrypt for that. I mean, the certificates aren't usually that big of a deal anymore with Let's Encrypt.
oh
yeah,
no,
the
it's already
certificate
done.
would
Yeah.
be the same as the process I used on your server.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I can see the only problem we're having with Jitsi is latency.
Yeah, we're starting to see that now. I wonder why that is. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's good to hear. I'll ponder more
They don't
about
like what we're talking about.
I'll ponder it more. Ponder Simplex more for the Department of Commerce, because yeah, I don't see why we couldn't, and if it's got a lot more possibilities than even what I thought of before, then yeah, I'll investigate that further. I like it. But yeah, I guess
Can be functional.
Oh, Shane, real quick, if Jitsi is being a little flaky or having latency right now, it might be a good idea to run an instance of top or htop to see if it's because the droplet is running out of CPU resources. Because this is like how many people do we have on here now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I don't know.
Yeah, and
7 might be
lower number.
pushing it for the single CPU, cheapest droplet they got.
Well,
Yeah.
that's possible, and this is the lowest
So
number of people that
that
been
would
here
be a
so
good
far.
thing to check.
So, yeah. Okay, yeah, and that I'll probably just go. I'll look into that and see what the next upgrade on the droplet is, at least until we get the rest of the stuff figured out. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and kind of move towards wrapping up here. I still want to give you guys give you an opportunity here to give any closing thoughts on NextCloud, on PAZNIA infrastructure. I know like we didn't necessarily get to implementation or that sort of stuff, but yeah, we need to take our time and do this right. So I like it. So I'll just kind of open up the floor here, and we'll try to deal with the latency. Sorry, but yeah, anyone with any closing thoughts on those sorts of things, or I guess yeah, any more general PAZNIA stuff, I suppose, since I did say we'd close with that.
We're basically each node is just going to have to make sure they have a good router firewall to be behind. we talked about the compartmentalization of separating the networks out and stuff like that, and putting and for this at least, not necessarily worrying about going through NAT, but actually putting this on a DMZ on a separate isolated interface. But that's about all the more to the infrastructure. I mean, as far as if people want to roll their own devices, NextCloud can run on a potato. Like for the basic features, I forget what, I don't have it up and monitoring anymore, but it was like under 500 megabytes of RAM with the default install, and very little CPU on a Rock 64, which is basically like a smartphone power device, power level device. So yeah, so pretty much anything will run it. The question is the hardware going to be reliable and all that, right?
There's
And
that
probably
aspect. What about the bandwidth requirements? That's going to depend on what you're going to be running under NextCloud, or is that right?
Yeah. For the most simple node of someone that just wants to kind of participate in all this and be able to share and stuff like that, it's not going to require all that much. But like for let's say like maybe a community node that has all the services hosted on it so that everybody can access it, and people that aren't using NextCloud could access it, that would require more. So I mean, it's just going to depend on the use case of the person running it, but the entry level is pretty low, and the sky's the limit to what you can. I mean, you can integrate NextCloud with all kinds of stuff and have a whole network. So, like hardware wise.
What would be the risks, or what would be the considerations if you were going to host NextCloud for like a minimal setup on your own home network? Would that be something that would be unwise to do, or how would you see going about that if the bandwidth requirements are not that stringent for an individual?
Well, I mean, as long as you're using good segmentation and you're not just sticking it on your kind of LAN side of the network and poking holes into your LAN for people to access. And then this is what we were talking about with the NAT before. Like, there are good secure ways to do that, but as far as trying to run an accessible server from the internet, like the less kind of crap you have to go through, the better. The like more direct your connection is, the better. As far as all that.
So maybe hosting maybe a disposable computer at the worst case on a DMZ, so it's completely isolated from your home network, might be one way to go about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the way the DMZ would work. It would be just that. Like if it was a single device that someone was using, that's the only device that would be on that network segment. So that network segment can't talk to anything else. I mean, even management, you would have to go onto that network to manage it. Like you're not going to do local management through your LAN side, right? Like you'd have to actually plug into
unless
that
you switched up, unless you switched around your network configuration for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of ways to do it. Like here, I'm running Proxmox on a cluster. I have like a 5 system cluster at this point, and I have like multiple NICs, so I can just like throw a NIC onto the DMZ and make the virtual machine use that. So and I can still manage it from the LAN, but it's not really on the LAN. But I don't know, it's kind of tangential. But there's lots of ways to do it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Fantastic. So it seems like the latency cleaned up a little bit after another person or two dropped off. So yeah, maybe we hit our limit there. But yeah, anyone else? I guess general infrastructure comments, questions, considerations. P.A.Z.NIA Map, NextCloud, Department of Commerce, SimpleX. General P.A.Z.NIA questions or anything? I'll open it up another time or two and make sure we get everything on the table here.
Were there specific questions and objectives for this meeting that you had in mind? Particularly, I know we had some discussion points on a lot of things, but were there agenda items or questions answered that we want to that we can document from what we discussed so far?
Well, yeah, looking back over the outline, I think most, yeah, it covered most, most everything. I mean, I did want to, I guess I was, maybe I was naive, but I was hoping, that we get closer to implementation, but or get to a point here where we could, maybe get the PAZNIA map. But again, and maybe that could still happen in the shorter term. But I gotta, we gotta start testing out NextCloud. I gotta get my hands on it and start seeing what it can do. So, yeah, I guess
What's
we
keeping
got
you
some testing.
What's holding you up from doing that, Shane?
Well, I just sent out the Ghost Pad and my old nodal to Jamin. He's gonna put NextCloud on there. I just mailed it out today. So,
Gotcha.
just gotta wait for it to
All
come
right,
back,
gotcha.
and we'll be in business. So,
Gotcha. All right, good deal.
yes, sir. So yeah, I guess
and I'll
that's
be able to do it as soon as it gets here too, so it's not a big deal.
cool. And I need to get you that SSD too that you sent me. So I'll coordinate that.
Cool.
So otherwise, yeah, I guess
Because
that's the first big
Ghost
step.
Pad has like a small spinning hard drive in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so testing out NextCloud and seeing what it can do, but yeah, I love the progress so far. It's coming together. So I'll ask one more time. Anything else before I let you all go?
I had a blast, guys. This was good.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, for sure.
Certainly. Awesome. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and begin to close out there. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time and expertise and knowledge. We made a lot of really great progress this evening. A lot of great progress. So yeah, to stay up to date with Department of Technology topics, I would highly suggest you download Simplex either on your Ghost phone, Android device, or via CLI on a laptop if that's more your speed. Head over to the show notes for this episode, VanuPodcast.com/188. Find the image with the Simplex short links and join our various PAZNIA chats there. The main committee of correspondence is there as well as a number of subchats that are dedicated to various technology projects, many of which we talked about tonight, but there's also more. I will say, though, these assemblies do not need to be restrained to just meetings for Department of Technology. If there's anything you would like to talk about, please do let me know. Seriously, even if it just amounts to Q&A or something like that, whatever. There's certainly a lot more in the realm of self-liberation, VANU, PAZNIA, etc. that we could cover. And I'd love to do it. DM me on SimpleX, Telegram, Signal, or email coordinator@PAZNIA.com. So, yeah, I guess I'll mention just right before we close out, we were talking a lot about the PAZNIA map tonight. We do need more submissions to the PAZNIA map. PAZNIA.com/join is the forum there. Obviously, read the notes, read the security culture procedures, and notices there on the first page and take them to heart. And but we definitely do need submissions for the map. But if you're a nomad or self-liberator that's seeking access to the network, or if you'd like to offer your services to the Second Realm, there's a second form, PAZNIA.com/join2. So I will say the first link, PAZNIA.com/join, is more important right now because we get those accumulated. And we get the infrastructure in place, and like I said, we've got bigger visions with logistics network and nomads having access to Second Realm where they can travel around and stay in these pockets of freedom permanently. So a map or just some sort of visual will be great in making that happen. So we certainly hope.
Could I pitch two more things real quick?
Please do, Matthew. Please do. Yeah, please do.
One, I'd like to pitch Content Safe. Anybody who doesn't know about us, we do video redistribution, and as I said in the conference, that we are working on doing transcription and other search and ML-based processing of content creators' material. The other thing I'm involved with is Tom and I are working together on integration of Content Safe to the Pirate Box that everybody should know about, and which is also involving Reticulum secure networking, mesh networks, and I'd love input on any sort of network technology. I know NAT penetration is something that's happening with Reticulum. And the third thing is I'm involved with Trent. I don't know if Trent got into the call or if he.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
see
Yeah,
Trent in
he's
here.
back.
Nice.
He's back in. Yeah, Trent and I are working together on an app for basically it's something that could be part of the VANU community to help with commitments. Say, use Simplex to get the job listings done, and then use Trent's app for the actual commitments once the job starts. Maybe Trent could give 2 minutes to explain what's going on with our app.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. I don't know what Simplex is, but you've got it right. I'm involved in the identity community, and there's standards for verifiable credentials and signing, cryptographically, and having issuers and holders then be able to use your credentials, without going to a central repository for the authority. And so, based on this, it's like, okay, let's set up your groups that you trust, and let's use those credentials to authorize your access and even maybe filter your communications. So the first part is to coordinate with projects. Look for projects you want to do, and then give offers of time to those projects. And I hope this will be interesting to the Liberty community. People wanting to get involved in something, maybe don't know how. Let's throw out all kinds of projects that you could then commit to, or even crowd fund with your time. I'll help with that, but if you get 3 other people, let's just see how many projects are out there. And anyway, so that's the ideal, is get those commitments and galvanize people around projects and see what's interesting. So that's the summary. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, Trent. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's I like what I hear so far. Is there a website or somewhere people can follow up, or more information, or what's the
haven't
status?
released the app yet.
Mhm.
So I do expect we'll release the app this month, and we'll invite people one by one to get on, because it's something where you kind of have to know somebody in the network to get on. So Matt and I will definitely be advertising around, and so I expect for the next one of these meetings we could definitely get people on.
Awesome.
That'd be cool.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for jumping in with that, Matthew. Jamin, we talked about your various projects going on very recently. Was there anyone else that wanted to? Thomas, Matthew mentioned the project that you guys are working on that we talked about at VANU Fest. Did you want to, give any information on that, or any updates on what you're working
briefly, I can do that. Yeah, sure. Briefly, Matt and I, as you mentioned, Matt and I were working on this project. We've started on about a year ago, almost a year ago, and I delivered at least a preliminary copy of that product to you, Shane. But it's a long ways from being ready to use. To be honest with you, it's kind of put it into rush mode to get it into your hands, just to save shipping costs, if nothing else. Maybe give you an opportunity to look at some very general aspects of it, the user interface, etc. But it's coming along slowly. It's a resource issue. I'm the only one working on documentation, website, and everything else, which I haven't even started on the marketing stuff yet to speak of. I've gotten into it a little bit with regard to getting some copy going and all, but there's still a lot of technical things to be done, and I'm hoping to get an actual platform that should have been what I delivered to you, but I was a little bit too early in delivering it to you. But I'm going to be shipping another one to another one of the beta people out there, and it's our partner, it's Matt's partner and I, Daryl Becker. So I'm hoping to get that done within the next week and get that thing shipped out to him. But in all cases, there's still a lot that needs to be worked out with Matt's back end, and that's going to require most likely changes on all these people that I'm issuing the beta products to. So it's a work in progress, and it's moving kind of slowly, but it's moving forward.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Thomas. All right. I guess I will. I don't think there was anything else there. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Anyway, I'll just close out here. Again, thanks so much.
Because that's really the issue that we're dealing with these, ghost phones, ghost pads, whatever, is that there's no way that you can organize with other people and have these distributed tribes if you have a snitch in your pocket all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People are literally wearing wires all the time. They have a snitch in their pocket and they're trying to do clandestine things. That's never going to work. I'm focused on this project now because I really see how the unfettered flow of communication is what really has prompted this, shift in consciousness. And that if this can't continue this way and people can't communicate freely with each other, then all the distributed networks that have formed aren't going to be very effective, and they're not going to be able to do what they could do. If you can't communicate, especially when you're basically part of a dispersed tribe at this point, if you can't communicate without being monitored, it basically hamstrings anything going forward.
Step up your privacy and order a ghost phone today. Just visit libertyunderattack.com/ghost phone. Again, libertyunderattack.com/ghost phone. And make sure to keep a lookout for more ghost pads, privacy tools, freedom boxes, and more. libertyunderattack.com is the website. Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom.
.48, the second volume in the Brushfire thriller series, takes place in the not-so-distant future. In the second half of the 21st century, the War of Ideas took place. The creation of second realms and individualist decentralized freedom cells spread across geographical regions, and the practical ideas of liberty, voluntary interaction, and peace took hold. The Free Society in 2048 is loosely based on Samuel E. Konkin III's Phases of Agorism, in which the destruction of the state would be realistically accomplished through the establishment of pockets of free individuals, black and gray markets, and the spreading of the ideas of freedom and liberty, until the demand for an overarching state was no longer perceived as essential, and individualism and voluntary interaction prevailed. The original creators of the Freedom Cells who led the world to a better place are still scattered about, living their lives, including Maxine, the late Henry Tucker's love, and the now washed-up but stubborn punk rocker Warren, still reside in the Appalachian Mountains. Maxine's nephew, Vince, and his boy Tommy, who had been band nomads ever since Tommy's mom left to pursue a materialistic quest for fortune in the never-ending rat race, went to visit Auntie Max on her homestead on Jim Mountain Road. Although Max is very happy for the visit, she has an ulterior motive. Her close friend she met during her revolutionary days, Isaac Hopper, is trapped in a geographical area previously known as New York City, now known as the State Zone. The State Zone is one of only a handful of remnant states where an overarching power-hungry government rules over its citizens with aggressive force. Together, Warren, Vince, and Tommy team up and use their knowledge, including advanced hacking techniques, low-tech ciphers, IRC encrypted chat, and cryptocurrencies to infiltrate and evade the authorities in the State Zone and bring back Isaac to freedom. But their mission, the rescue of Isaac, Auntie Max's close friend and confidant, isn't going to be easy. They're up against a powerful authoritarian Hydra state, a massive surveillance apparatus, a relentless and murderous police state, and a propaganda arm that will not stop until extremist terrorists known as the Trio, Warren, Vince, and Tommy, are brought to justice. Will the trio pull off the rescue of Max's longtime friend Isaac Hopper? Will the forces of good, free individuals, prevail against the sadist forces of evil? Find out in the second volume of the Brushfire thriller series, 2048, available exclusively via Liberty Attack Publications. Just visit libertyunderattack.com/2048. Again, libertyunderattack.com/2048, or snag them both in the Brushfire bundle. libertyunderattack.com/2048 bundle. Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story. Find your freedom.